Today is Monday, December 1st, 2025, and this is Spring Office Hours, Season 4, Episode 32, Multi-Factor Authentication with Josh Cummings. My name is Dan Vega, Spring Developer Advocate at Broadcom, joined by my good friend and colleague, DaShaun Carter. DaShaun, how's it going?
It is a wonderful time to be a Spring developer, and man, I'm stuck in a little bit of a snowstorm, so the kids are home, but I've got new toys. We've got Spring Boot 4, and we're able to use it, and we're going to production with it, and it's awesome. And now that that's out, all the other stuff is coming. The rest of the release train is coming. So it's just been a good time. Like, I feel like the Spring team is giving me presents all of the time.
I know, and we get to do this. We get to go out and talk about this to customers. So we've been doing this for a little while, but now I'm starting to see some videos come out on YouTube of other creators talking about Spring Boot 4. That's been really exciting for me, like seeing the community get their hands on it. So, it's been so much fun.
It's in production. I can say this safely. Spring Boot 4 is in production.
That's pretty awesome to hear.
So if you're not there yet with Spring Boot 4, you're just a little behind. It's okay. It's okay.
So how was your Thanksgiving? You get some food?
I did.
I know you did.
The food, the food was delicious. I've got a lot of kids. My family, there's a lot of folks. So we had a big one. We had a nice big group, and it was delicious food all the way around. Might have been the best tasting food that we've had. That I can remember anyways. It's been
that's every year.
maybe that's the case. But yeah, it was good. And and I also took the time to do, some extra fun stuff. I'm a big fan of Spring Shell, and I had the milestones, and I'm building CLIs for fun stuff. And so I've been digging into the milestone releases and giving feedback. That's always fun. That's part of me, trying to give back a little bit, trying to contribute. It's just like take the milestones and give them some feedback.
Yeah, I haven't thought about work since Wednesday afternoon. I normally am just like 24/7, but I was like, man, I need a break. I'm just kind of like burnt out. So I took a nice break, didn't think about work. It was great. Till this morning, I was like, I got to get caught up on everything now.
You've been busy, but you've been busy. We had the book launch, we had conferences, customers. You've been all over, and I get it. You deserve some downtime. And if nobody else is, I'm here to tell you.
I appreciate it. I did check with you first, and you said,
who's the hardest working man in show business? You're the hardest working man in Java.
I appreciate that. I also got some good food. I ate too much, but then thankfully that snow that you were talking about got dumped on us, and I spent the whole morning shoveling mine and my neighbor's driveway, and I burnt all that off. So that was worth it.
Good times.
Cool.
I'm thankful to see everybody in the chat. Everybody's showing up. Definitely upgrade all the things. Hi, Felipe's here. We're doing good stuff. Alexander, like a lot of the crew is showing up. And my parents, they like to watch. So they like seeing where everybody's joining from. So if you're in here, if you're in the chat, in the live stream, make sure to say hello and tell us where you're joining from, because mom and dad, they like to see that.
Yeah, and just as a reminder, we live stream usually every Monday from 1 to 2 Eastern time. If you can join us, that's great. You can join us live. You can ask your questions. We'll see if we can't get them answered. If not, you can catch the replay on the Spring Developer YouTube channel. We also go ahead and turn this into a podcast, so you could take us in the car, on the run, like our friend Jitter Ted does, or wherever you get your podcast. So go ahead and check us out there. December 1st, 2025. I can't believe it's December. And just before the show, we were talking about season 5 of Spring Office Hours starts next year. Is that crazy?
That is crazy.
Pretty cool.
It is crazy.
Now, with Spring Boot 4, there's a lot of things that go into Spring Framework 7 and Spring Boot 4. We also have a whole ecosystem of projects that support whatever you're building, right? So a lot of people always ask, like, how do I learn Spring? You got to pick a path, right? Because it can do so many things. We have projects to support whatever you're doing. And so you got to kind of pick a path. One of those paths usually lands you on security. Security is at the core of everything we do, or at least it should be, right? And security is not one of those things you want to roll on your own. I've kind of tried that. Not fun. We let the experts handle that. And we are lucky enough to have an expert with us today. So at this time, I'm going to bring to the stage Mr. Josh Cummings. Josh, how are you?
Hey, everybody. Good to see you. I'm doing great. Nice to hear that you both had a nice Thanksgiving weekend.
Oh, it was great. How was yours?
It was good. Good. Got to visit with family and make and eat a lot of good food.
Yeah, I saw in the internal spring chats, a lot of people were like, "Hey, when everybody gets back from
I
Thanksgiving,
know, right? Then we can start working again.
yeah." But hey, Josh, DaShaun and I have shared a cab with you, so we know you. But for anyone who has not had the privilege of sharing a cab ride with you, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. So I live in Utah, which is in the Mountain West in the United States. It's roughly in between California and Colorado. We share the Rocky Mountains with Colorado, so there is a fun-loving rivalry between us and those to the east of who has the best snow. A lot of people come to Utah to come ski. They also come to Utah, to southern Utah, to see the Red Rocks, to go to national parks and things like that. So if you've been to Utah or have heard of it, those are probably the two main reasons that you have.
It's beautiful too. I mean, just
oh my gosh,
beautiful scenery.
For sure. I feel so lucky to have grown up in Utah and to have beautiful landscapes to look at all the time. Let's see. So I was actually born in California. We moved to Utah when I was young. And I grew up here, married here. I have 7 kids, and they have a wide range. Our oldest is 20, and our youngest is 5. And
that is a wide range.
We have children in every phase of life, which is a lot of fun. It's chaotic, but it's fun to see them all like help each other out. And yeah, we just got Christmas decorations up yesterday. So that's a little bit of what's going on with us.
Now, I have a friend, they live pretty close to us. They have 5 kids, and he got this huge Sprinter van because there's no other way to transport that many people. Do you have something similar?
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we have a Sprinter, and it's my favorite vehicle ever. Some other time I'll tell you the whole long winding story of how we obtained it. But the very short version is we were planning a cross-country trip as a family over the summer. We were going to be gone for a month, and I had coordinated a rental car, like a big Sprinter kind of rental car, because we didn't want to, if we were going to drive 8,000 miles, we wanted to have a little more space than just our minivan. And the rental car company a week before bailed on us. And so we were ready to cancel the whole thing because well, if we don't have transport, then we can't do it. Anyway, so I'll tell you the rest of the story at a later time. But the Sprinter, kind of like a mini miracle, came into our lives, and so we still have it, and it's one of the best impulse buys we've ever made.
Nice.
And so, it's lovely. It has 12 seat belts. And now we are the designated party wagon for
everything.
Date nights, for prom night, for everybody, all the whole junior jazz team going down to the jazz game downtown, whatever it is.
There you go.
We haul everybody. So it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I never know if it's my friend coming over or the Amazon delivery truck pulling. Either way, it's a good outcome.
Same color. People mistake it all the time. I don't know how that happened, but our van is literally the same color as the Amazon delivery vans.
Fantastic.
So it's just not electric, so it doesn't have the cool headlights features. So they have to have headlights and everything. It's older than that, but yeah.
So you're. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just saying it's old school.
It's old. Yeah, it's old school. Yeah.
So you're on the Spring security team. How long have you been there? What interesting things have you worked on?
I started contributing full time to. I did a little bit of. That's a little misleading. I did a very small amount of contributing, but officially full time in 2018, February of 2018.
Nice.
I started using Spring Security as an engineer. Oh my gosh. 2006, 5.
Wow.
Around there. So it's been a slow burn from there to where I am right now, but yeah, consistently using it for many, many years.
And did you make any contributions as an open source contributor before joining the team?
There was just one that Rob and I collaborated on.
Nice.
That's actually how I met Rob. Well,
that's what I was getting to.
got to talk to him more in person. And it's been so long. There was some kind of race condition with the Spring Security SAML extension, and it was breaking in our production environment. And so anyway, So when I say it was a very small contribution, it was a very small contribution. It was a bug fix. But one of the things I loved that I did for a long time was being on Stack Overflow, answering Spring security questions. And so anytime like I had, because I didn't have an employer that would like, wanted to like support that kind of thing. So so it's just when I was at home, nights and weekends, but I just liked hopping online and helping people with their Spring security questions. So I was a bit more of a contributor from from a technical support standpoint. But
that got you connected with Rob. And, I was just going to say, the reason I asked that is we've talked to so many people on the Spring team, and it's always like, hey, I was working at this company. I started contributing to this project, and here I've been here 10, 15 years. Like,
for sure.
I've heard a lot of those stories. So
for sure. Yeah. There was a point in my life where, right about then actually, where I thought, you know what do I want the next few years, whatever it looks like, of my developer career to be? And I said, you know what, I shouldn't say, I don't want to disparage corporate America, but there was a little bit of burnout on my part from like, I want to do something a little bit more meaningful, a little bit broader, bigger. And so I decided, you know what, in the next 5 years, I'm going to become a trusted member of some open source project. And whatever that looks like in the end, but just I'm going to do that. And so I narrowed it down. I had worked a lot with Elasticsearch, with Kafka, and with Spring much longer than the other two. But and I thought, okay, that's what I'm going to try. I'm going to start working on each one of those, seeing where I can contribute and stuff like that, and start moving my way into one of the communities. And lucky for me, Spring security was at the top of my list. Like I'd always like that was my first love has always been security. And so I was like, oh man, well, if I could actually get Spring security, then that would be amazing. But I'll settle for the other ones if that's what comes out. But any one of those would have just been spectacular, because each one of those teams is such a high flying team, and I have so much respect for the people and like everybody in the open source community, and any one of those would have been incredible. But that's kind of how it began.
It's so important to like kind of grasp that, like, because I think a lot of people get into like software development and just like, hey, I'm just gonna code till I'm done coding, right? And it's like you've got to like dip your toes in different waters and see what excites you, because like you've signed up for a lifetime of learning, and you've signed up for a lifetime of working on code in one way or another. So find something that excites you, because if not, you are going to get burnt out. It's just going to be a job. And that's not what we want to do, right?
One of the other things that you can do, I think sometimes people are like, everybody has a different personality type. Some people are a little more extroverted, some people are a little more introverted. I've heard from folks that how you tell the difference between a software engineer who's introverted and extroverted is the extrovert looks at your shoes instead of their own when they're talking to you. And so, but within any community, there's a spectrum. And so some folks might be like, I just don't want to contribute. I don't want to coordinate with people. I don't want to do that. I just want to do my own thing. And there's lots of space in there too. Like that's honestly how I started out before I even kind of set out on a goal to be an open source engineer. I had this idea that I wanted to produce an intentionally vulnerable web application. And if anybody's ever heard of or played with WebGoat or Juicebox, or there's a few others, there's DVWA is another famous one that's a little older. And I played with all those, and I was like, I want to make my own. Just like I want to, play with it, see what I can do to play with both sides of like offense and defense with application security at the same time. And see how well I can do like testing with it. Can I test for it, right? And figure out whether or not it's secure. And so I ended up building one called Terracotta Bank, which is just like, I haven't maintained it in ages.
I play with that.
Yeah, you can go check it out. Terracotta Bank. It's really old. It's like a boot 1.2 or something. It's old. And abandoned. And maybe one day I'll pick it back up again. But it was a fun project for me. And I thought, you know what? This is my chance to like put it out there. And just, if anybody, I don't care if anybody uses it or not. But if I'm going to write the code anyway, I might as well put it on GitHub. And if I'm going to put it on GitHub, it's going to be public, and might as well just, point people to it if I'm going to speak at a conference or something like that. And I ended up using it for a couple of courses that I wrote, and different people used it from an education standpoint. anyway, it wasn't like crazy go nuts or anything, but it taught me about, you know what, it's not as scary as you think to start putting your name out there. And if it's something that you fully control, then you can like fully turn it off too. If you're like, I'm done, I can't do it anymore. You can delete everything.
Too much.
and so that's a good way to begin too.
Yep.
It's totally valid. And that's the way I started. And then after some of those nerves were, what's the word? Like after I felt better about that, then it was a little easier to start like reaching out to other projects and saying, hey, what if we did this, or writing an issue, or something like that. So.
Yep. Yeah, and I think that whole introvert versus extrovert, I think it's important to remember in the like age of social media, some of the most brilliant engineers I've ever met have never given a conference talk. Yeah. Like, and it's okay to like just want to work on code and put your headphones on and like solve really interesting problems. And it's okay if you want to go give conference talks and meetup talks. Like, as you said, you just got to find like what interests you. So
yeah, for sure.
Yep. Pretty cool.
I'm a big fan of two big things here for the audience. The idea that you went on to Stack Overflow. I'm a big fan. I kind of did that. Like, hey, I've got time. Let me go see what I can help out with in Spring Boot. Let me see how well I know it. Let me see if I can learn something along the way. That's awesome. But then also this practice of, let me build something. Let me share something. Let me see how many people use it. And you mentioned that, and I might even be one of these forks of the like I was in the space. And I remember thinking, oh, this will help me. This will help me understand what I'm doing. And yeah, so I'm going to say thanks from the community. There's 33 folks on that, 42 stars. Like, as something that you're just kind of putting out there to get help on, that is an awesome idea, right? Get some feedback. And then I'll say the last thing, to Dan's point, is you're lucky you figured out that you like security. For newer developers, the Spring ecosystem is massive. And there's these nice little projects and channels where you can go in. If it's Elastic, there's tons of stuff to do, and you can go deep on it, and you can get to really interesting use cases. But yeah, try it out. Like, take some time, figure out where you like. You don't have to know it all. Find something that you like. Find something that makes you happy, brings joy. There's definitely something in the ecosystem where you can, I think, find something that brings you joy.
Yeah.
Yep.
And make it work interesting.
So I wanna turn the book cover here into Spring Security 7. So Spring Boot 4 came out. Spring Security 7 is the version that ships with Spring Boot 4. There are some new things in that, one of which is multi-factor authentication. Before we get into the what of it, I heard a story, I think it was on Josh's podcast, that Rob Winch was like before he was hired, he was asked what he would want to work on if he got to like pick his own project. And then I believe Rob was interviewing you and asked you a similar question. Is that true?
That's true. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, Rob and I both had one common goal. We had other ones too. And I listed some things for him that he and I still... Like, I think I agree with him more now that I know even more about Spring Security. I listed for a couple of other things. Like I said, I'd love it if it had more FIP support, and I'd love it if it had better auditing capabilities. And he talked about some of the difficulties with those, like ever flying at all, like for various reasons. But yeah, it was easy to see at the beginning that we both had kind of this common itch that was like, why the flip does Spring Security not have multi-factor authentication yet? It needs it. And so that was nice that right from the early days we could we saw that there was a common, what's the word? I don't know, star on the horizon that we were following, trying to figure out how to introduce it into Spring Security appropriately. So how did we get from there to here? What happened? How did the stars?
Oh gosh.
Well, so I think, there are a lot of things. But the big thing that people can look at in the history of Spring Security, where there was kind of like a notable fork in the road, was, I will back up just a little bit more. There's good context for why we did this, why we had the room to do it. I guess I should say that. So before I came on the team, so I was introduced, I came onto the team right after Spring Security 5 was released. And the big thing for Spring Security 5 was reactive support, among other things. That was the big thing that was being released on all the major APIs. And Spring Security had like rewritten its entire like filter chain and everything to support the reactive paradigm. And that gave Rob an opportunity. I don't want to speak for him too much, but that gave Rob an opportunity to reconsider, okay, authorization, if we could rewrite this from the ground up, what would we do?
Wow.
And one of the things that he observed quite cleverly, and just Rob has a really good talent for minimizing a design, getting it at the right level of, okay, I don't need 3 interfaces here. I can do it with 1 without it being bloated, like finding that right balance. He's very talented at that. And he noted that in order to customize anything with authorization, you generally speaking need to customize about 4 different classes. The access decision manager, maybe the voter, just kind of depends. The security, what was it called? The security metadata source. And there was a lot of, it could be simpler, right? It was great. People used it, but it could be simpler. It could be a lot simpler.
Yeah.
And so he did some work in Spring Security 5 to introduce Reactive Authorization Manager, which was a single interface that you could use to customize the entire authorization statement, where you decide whether or not someone is authorized. You could use that authorization manager to obtain and store and whatever kind of things that you need to do with regard to metadata, like all of the different steps that were originally separate from one another are now together in one interface. Some of that was made easier by generic typing, which wasn't there 25 years ago when CG security was first written. And so some of that may have not really actually been particularly possible back then, at least not as easily. And so anyway, long story short, that was introduced in Spring Security 5. And in 5.5, me and a contributor, Evgeny Chaban, I hope he doesn't mind me mentioning him, we worked to introduce that into Spring Security 5.5 and just follow the pattern from reactive to servlet. And I won't belabor that point any further. The same reasons why we wanted to do that were present in reactive as well as servlet. It's just that now we had to figure out a migration path. Introduce that over the course of several releases, introduce the equivalence of what was over on the Access API side of Spring Security so that we could deprecate those and create a migration path for people to move. The reason that was so important is because we want to have very powerful authorization statements. And we recognize, as many other people do, that the real power when we're thinking about security is deciding on whether or not someone is authorized to do a thing. We may have a huge disparate set of ways that we can confirm that you are who you are. But once we know that, we need to decide whether or not you can do the thing that you're asking to do. And Spring Security originally introduced role-based access control. And the industry has long, like there are definitely places where that's still perfectly applicable. Many places in the industry have long outgrown that and need something else, something more flexible to be able to describe whatever, whether it's attribute based or whatever kind of crazy thing that they have to do in order to make some decision about whether or not this user has permission to do this action, that we needed to be much more flexible. So that was the big fork in the road. The first being 5, when we got to we had the opportunity to kind of rethink the API. And the 5.5, where we said, okay, let's start introducing this into servlet. The rest is kind of like history until about 6.5, when 6.4, somewhere around there, where
it was 6.4.
Somewhere around there. It was around there, where this is more of a timeline thing. It's not a feature that was there. Where I personally, this is where it just becomes personal for me for a second, and then I reconnect back to Rob's, like what we were talking about. And I just, one morning I was like, all of this stuff that because we have all kinds of spikes going everywhere about like how to do multi-factor for like ages, right? And there was even one in Spring Security samples that was complicated, and it's fine, but just like it's definitely not simple. And one morning, it was like a shower thought. It was like one morning,
I love those.
Really, multi-factor authentication is just a statement about authorization. It's I authorize this person if they have been authenticated with username and password and a one-time token. and they have whatever role, who knows what, right?
Yeah.
But if I add to the authorization statement the ways in which they authenticated, then it's still just a statement of authority like every other statement of authority. And now that we have an API that's so simple to implement and re-implement with lots of different, what's the word? Lots of different bells and whistles, like whatever's needed, like to represent. It's worth considering this idea. And so I built this thing in like an afternoon that was like, holy smokes. Like if I just have an access decision manager, what is it called? An access denied handler. The names don't matter, especially if you don't know Spring Security. None of that matters. But just this one interface. If I implement this one interface, and I have this one like authorization manager that looks at how you were authenticated, then we're kind of done. And then I overheard Rob, and I was just letting it marinate, right? And then there was some random stand-up, I can't remember, where Rob was like, multi-factor authentication really needs to be just like a collective representation of authorities. And I was like, Rob, like you just independently came up with like you have strengths in your thing and whatever, but I think we just came up with the same idea independently. That's important. And so then I kind of like, we had these other things in the pipeline, and whether it was good or bad, I kind of like shoved everything out of the way on what I was going to do. And I was like, Rob, I want to get MFA done for 37. Are you okay with that? And like push everything out of the way. Cause we have a lot of other stuff in the pipeline, like stuff for password reset, for password strength analysis. And like, there's some other cool stuff that Spring Security is doing that is like a breath away from being completed. And I right or wrong, I sort of asked Rob if he's okay if I would just like forget that I'm working on all of that, because you and I, Rob, are like aligned. There's still a lot of work to figure out, but the model is basically the same for what you were saying and what I was saying. We should do this. And so Rob, I'm so grateful that he was as supportive as he was, because it was a lot of work. And he is in charge of so many other things on the Spring team that like, I know it was like a big lift for him to be able to support me at the level that was needed to make sure that, it aligned with both of our sets of goals. And like, he could put all of his, like, I don't want to overstate, but I just have such respect for Rob. Like all of it, he could bring all of his experience to bear on like, let's do this and let's do it right. And so I know it was a lot of work and sacrifice on his part as well to release it. But essentially that's how the story arc finished, where like we both saw each other from a modeling standpoint coming together. And that was just very cool. In the end, I don't actually know. I don't want to destroy the magic of the story. I don't know if it's as pencil as that. If Rob was just like waiting for me for years to come to that same conclusion, I don't know. But we both, like, I heard him talking about it at the same time I was building this model. And so it's like, hey, let's do it. So that's kind of the human story of how it came out. But yeah.
Well, now I'm even more impressed, because after looking through the documentation and trying it out myself, I'm like, oh, they just added this annotation and it makes everything work.
That doesn't look like it was hard.
Like what took so long, guys?
I really like the story of like, there's a version there where Rob was he'd been planting the seeds, and I just want Josh to get to this conclusion on his own.
Right?
I'm just going to keep planting the seeds. Rob, and then here it is. He's like, oh, I suppose I can move it. And he's going, yeah.
all the way back to the interview, he was planting those seeds.
He was planting seeds. We made it.
That's so cool to hear. Okay, so what is multi-factor authentication for those who don't know?
Yeah, for sure. So multi-factor authentication is an authentication strategy by which you can ask the user for multiple proofs of their identity in ways that cannot be faked in the same way, basically. So the three main categories are something you know, something you have, and something that you are. There's others. For example, you see a couple of those, something that you do, one of the cooler ones that I've heard. I won't get into the weeds too much about identity theory, but
Yeah.
just to give you an idea of like how broad this space is and how much people are thinking about like they're take a picture of you, send that picture to two other trusted people that you identified, and they can confirm is this the person who is logging in, and yes. And so there's stuff that goes way beyond the three that I'm referring to, but those are the three common ones. Something is like a password or a security question or something like that. And it's basically at this point distilled down to username and password. Something that you have is like access to your email client or access to a phone. And so that's why a lot of websites these days who are employing multi-factor authentication ask you for your password. That's something you know, and send you a SMS or send you an email. And
enter this weird 5-digit PIN number, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Or say, pull up the Authenticator app that you downloaded and that you synced to the website, or who knows what, right? Something that you can prove that you have this, because something that we have to record in some way, like the server side has to record it in some fashion, even if it's hashed or whatever, to confirm that we know the same thing that you know. Whereas something that you have is a little bit different, where that can be more ephemeral, and you can demonstrate that you have it in that moment. And just because I know your password now, I also don't have your phone at the same time that I'm trying to log in. And then something that you are is like Face ID or your thumbprint or whatever. And that is a slight variation on something that you have. It's just something more permanent about you that ostensibly is hard to fake. So hypothetically, if I know your password and I've stolen your phone, I have to be some mega spy to also be able to take your thumb or whatever, something like that. So and while nothing is foolproof and you can go bankrupt making your website 100% secure, each one of these factors gives you an order of magnitude greater strength in knowing that the user is who they say they are. And so this strategy is very commonly deployed these days. Everywhere we see it everywhere, and it's just a strong, sound way that security professionals recommend application developers employ to protect their users, because it gives you, the developer, a high level of confidence of that they are who they say they are.
So for those listening on the podcast or not joining us live here, I have the Spring Security documentation up. If you want to learn more about this, you can dig into just multi-factor authentication. You can do a search, you can find it that way. But essentially what we've done here is we have a security filter chain that we'd normally configure. We're authorizing our requests. We're saying, hey, anybody with /admin has to have a role of admin. Any request is authenticated. And then we have two forms of login here. A form login, basically, to give us a username and password, and a one-time token login that would give us a token. Now, so the example that we kind of talked about before is like I go to my bank, I log in, and then it sends me a code to my phone, and then I put that code in. When we have it like this, when I have it just defaulted, I remember trying this once, and I have like both, by default, I would have both of those options on screen. Essentially what I'd want to do though is just have like username and password, right?
Yeah.
And then one-time token, we would just automatically send to their email because we know who they are. They'd have to click on that token in the email, and then that's two factors of authentication, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's correct. Now, some things that you want to consider about saying is, and this isn't really a security podcast, so I won't get too much in the security weeds. But the first thing has nothing to do with security. It's just that, yes, it's true that the default login page for Spring Security is just that. It's something that shows all the authentication mechanisms.
Yep.
Because it's there to demonstrate to the developer that everything works.
To get you up and running quickly.
Yeah, for sure.
At some point, you're going to customize those.
Yeah, for sure. You're going to just remove it and do something else.
Yeah.
And so there's so that's why that's that way. We would continue to do it that way. That no matter what, that's not a limitation at all. We just want to make sure that you see all of them, that you know that they all work.
And if we added like OAuth 2 resource server with Google login, you'd see a Google form there as well.
See that there as well. And if you had SAML, you'll see another one. And if you add, and it's just like passkeys, then there's another one.
But it's good because if you didn't, like there's more friction to get up and running. So I like that.
For sure. So, however, from a security mindset standpoint, there is a reason why Spring Security still asks you to confirm your username before we ship you the token. And that is because you can, let me see if I can like explain this in just like a couple of words. And maybe as I'm starting to say it, I don't want to go into all of the security details, but it's in essence another kind of request forgery attack. There's potential for request forgery attack if I simply just if I just redirect you to the page that sends you the token, because I, as a hacker, could potentially also send you a token, and you need to know that you asked for that. As opposed to maybe it just magically appearing sometime. So that is a more like, there are folks that do it different ways, and you can kind of like take the different security risks into consideration, and you're always doing that all the time. But what we have is the most conservative security position, which is we do still show you the page, and you do still click and say, yes, please send me a token. But yeah, there are ostensibly arguments for skipping that page, but it's a more conservative security position, what we have there. So
cool. And then once those things are kind of set up in the security filter chain, we've set up form login, we've set up one-time token. There's an annotation that says enable multi-factor authentication, authorities equals, and this is could be 2. Could we have 3 or 4 if we wanted to? Probably wouldn't.
Yeah,
but
many you want. As many as an array will hold, ostensibly.
which is a lot. So we can, and then this just goes on a configuration class, which could be the Spring Security configuration class that you already have, right?
Yep.
And then I thought I saw an example somewhere of not doing it from an annotation standpoint, like in the definition of the security filter chain. I could do that too.
Yeah, for sure. So there's lots of reasons why you might not list them here. So the enable multi-factor authentication annotation is necessary for multi-factor authentication to work in Spring Security in general. Of course, you could do the thing that the annotation does. That's the beauty of Spring. You can just go behind it and say, okay, what's it doing? Well, it's publishing this bean, and I can publish that bean myself and whatever. But in general, your life is simpler if you add that annotation to say, I'm enabling multi-factor authentication. The property to specify authorities is to say, please require these in every authorization rule that I write with, say, the DSL or something like that, or with the pre-authorized annotation, whatever it might be. And so if you don't include those authorities, then they're not automatically added to every authorization rule. So you might think to yourself, well, why wouldn't I want it added to every authorization rule? There's a lot of reasons. The 2 main ones being, it's entirely possible that you have portions of your website that are more or less secure. And you might be able to get into the main part of the website with just a password, but to get to this other part of the website, I also need you to confirm a token or confirm that you're not a robot or do some other step to move you forward. And that programmatic access will mean that, no, I don't want all of those authorities required for every endpoint. Another common one is if you're introducing this to an existing website, and you want to allow your users to opt in and allow people to decide, sure, yeah, I'll integrate with the Authenticator app, or yes, you can send me SMS messages or whatever. And if you want to allow people to opt in for a period of time, then that's another place where your authorization rules will only operate conditionally, where first it will ask, hey, has this user, let me look up the user, have they opted in to asking for second factors? And if so, then I will require them, but otherwise I won't. And so any time where they're not part of every authorization rule, that's when you would just use the annotation without the authorities, leave those blank, and then programmatically make a decision.
Cool. Well, that clears that up.
One of the big things that I've heard you say a couple of times is you considered the migration path. You didn't just like, hey, here's the new functionality and you got to rewrite everything. You took into consideration what already existed, what was there with previous apps, and what that might look like to add multi-factor authentication.
Yeah,
so
for
just,
sure.
Again, saying thanks. Like you've mentioned it a couple of times, but I want to point that out. I've been saying a lot lately how Spring is legacy and how the Spring team has done such a wonderful job of getting to the latest versions easier.
Yeah.
So again,
security has a really strong motivation to do that, and other teams have their own strong motives too. Spring Security's strong motive is one that where we all get mutual benefit from it, and that is that we wanted to make it as easy to upgrade as possible, because CVEs are a reality of modern software engineering. And we want it to be as easy as humanly possible for you to upgrade to the next major, to the next minor, or whatever, so that as the CVE gets fixed, as maybe some older version is out of the support window now, whatever might happen, we can help you get upgraded as fast as humanly possible so you can get those CVE fixes available to you. And if say you're on a version that is either no longer supported or is at risk of no longer being supported because it's as old as it is or whatever, staying on the latest version as possible is the best defense against CVEs. And so we want to make it as easy as possible for you to move forward.
I'm sharing the documentation here on the live stream, and I just learned something new too. There's a way to specify a valid duration. This is really
my favorite
cool
feature, by the way. Yeah.
Sure. Explain this to me, because this looks really nice.
This is, I call it the Amazon feature. There's some interesting name for it, I'm sure, but time-based authorization rules. The idea is that you might need a piece you might need someone to authenticate within the last few minutes, right? Anybody who has used OAuth understands that this is built into the OAuth spec as well, right? But these scopes are valid for this much time. And you need to go back to the authorization server periodically to ask, hey, do I still have authority to do this, right? And when you're on Amazon's website, and I call it the Amazon feature because it's the first place I noticed it, like years and years ago when I was using, I went to go change my password or something and it asked me for my password again. I was like, oh, that's cool. And so now Spring Security has that support for you to be able to articulate that this particular rule needs one or both of the factors, however many of them that you need, to be done within a certain time period. And if not, then please ask for it again. And so, if you need another one-time token, if you need their password again, whatever it is, you can, using this API, you can specify it and create the rule accordingly, that just for this one endpoint or this set of endpoints or whatever, because you can use the ANT matching just like you can in the rest of Spring Security. I need you to ask for their password if they haven't given it in the last 10 minutes.
That's really awesome. I'm thinking, we have so many, I've worked with so many different banks over the years. It's like banking comes to me right away. Like you should authenticate right away. Like I don't want to let you just have 2 hours to authenticate, right?
Right. Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
Pretty cool.
This token expires in this many seconds. Yeah, you only have a little bit of time. That's valid. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And then there's programmatic multi-factor authentication. There are times when we might want to require MFA for some users, but not for others. I think that's what you kind of mentioned earlier, right?
Right. Yeah. The ability to, one of the primary cases is opting in, like some subset of forward-thinking users or whatever, beta testers, like whatever you're trying to achieve, would like to use it. You might also have business rules like this one highlights. And this is just because it's really easy to have a sample without a lot of background and a lot of explanatory context to like understand what the sample is saying. But ostensibly you could say, hey, all of our administrative staff or whatever, we need them to have this extra factor in order to authenticate. One can imagine that everybody internal, like to the company, they need to have an X509 certificate because all of their devices are managed. We install an X509 certificate on all of their browsers, whatever it is. And so if you are on one of the company laptops, we require you to have an X509 certificate as well. Otherwise, you can't log in. Whereas a normal everyday user might not need that. And they might also not get the same level of permissions because of that, right? The access to different parts of the website that wouldn't be needed by public-facing users.
I see an interesting annotation here at Null. So Spring Framework 7, Spring Boot 4 introduced kind of null safety with JSpecify. You guys, and I keep reminding the community that it's not just Spring Framework 7 and Spring Boot 4. A lot of the ecosystem projects had to like add this into it. So how was that experience for you?
It's been kind of twofold. One, because the broader community has been working on it. There are tools out there to help you to add it if you're adding it to your own APIs. And so that was part of the experience as we upgraded from Spring Framework, and now something's broken because we are calling some Spring Framework API that now has a nullable annotation and all that. That in the end was relatively Jay specify all the things. It was relatively straightforward for us with the tooling that's available. It wasn't like you could just
find and replace.
But the second thing though, and I'm interested to see what happens. Joe Granja on the Spring Security team as well. He's using this as an opportunity for him to see what AI is capable of, and so he's asking AI to like what other parts of the Spring Security API need to be annotated, or as we bring something in and it needs changes, can it just change it for me and stuff like that. So it's a nice way for the team to sort of wade into that and see how much it can help us to maintain those things. But yeah, I think that people have learned a lot from null safety, from having it in the contract, playing with Kotlin and saying, oh my gosh, that makes the code a lot cleaner. And so I just think it's another natural evolution.
Did you uncover any bugs with it? Because I heard Sebastian talking. He said he ended up finding one bug because of this. So.
Oh yeah, I'm not sure what bug he's referring to, but one of the things that I think was nice was from a contract definition standpoint, which is to clarify to everybody that a password can be null. There are a number of protocols that allow for this. LDAP is an example where you can specify no password. And inside of LDAP, that means like I'm okay with whatever access you'll give me just by identifying myself as like an anonymous user. And in some cases, there are things where LDAP will be like, sure. Or there's some what's the word? Industry uses of passwordless access to LDAP. And so because of that, the Spring Security API allows the password to be null, and yet that's not clear in the API.
You have to jump into the implementation and like figure that out yourself if it's not made clear, right?
So now anywhere where there is a reference to a password inside of the Spring Security API, there's a nullable annotation, so it's clear that we will continue to work if the password is null, and if you in your business rules have support for that.
Yeah, Sebastian has talked about this a lot, and I really kind of gravitate towards this. He kind of likens it to like tests. Like we write tests to be a little bit more assured and confident in the code that we're like pushing out. And I think this does the same thing. Like maybe it didn't uncover a bug, but maybe it makes it easier for the end user, and it just gives me that confidence. Like when I'm committing code, that hey, we're not going to run into a null pointer exception at runtime, right?
For sure. Absolutely.
That's been pretty cool. All right.
Oh, this is a cool feature here. Wait. Go back.
Oh, sorry.
I forgot to mention this one. So, so I guess just a little bit of context. For folks that have used Spring Security already, you're familiar with the phrase has authority. It appears in the DSL and it appears in your spell expressions. And you might also be familiar with has any authority. And that's just a simplification of the spell expression, right? It does the or for you. And this one adds has all authorities because it's important when you, like, it's a natural outgrowth of, like, I need you to have logged in with all of these things. So it's a natural and so we added has all authorities across the board. And the a common ask is when we think about users and a different set of authorities that each one needs, and some of those authorities being the factors that you need in order to be able to access different endpoints, those are things that are answered via a database, via some kind of repository. And so Spring Security 7 comes with API support for plugging in a Spring Security repository interface that you could ostensibly tie to Spring Data, for example, to perform a database query to decide what set of factors are necessary for this user. And so anyway, that's I just wanted to mention that. So there is support for connecting to a database to answer the question.
Nice. That's awesome.
We started seeing some of that in Spring Security 6, right? Where we could, at the method level, validate the maybe that's part of the pre-auth, the other conditions, like, hey, you can do this, and we could tie it to a database table to find out.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. One of the neat things about that you were just saying, DaShaun, is so when you have a big feature like this, it often requires other kinds of refinements, right?
Yep.
And if it didn't, then it's like, okay, well, why wasn't it there in the first place? Well, the reason it wasn't there in the first place because some refinements were needed, right? One of the big refinements was the authorization manager API that we talked about in the beginning.
Yeah.
But another simple one was the fact that method security and web security have always been just a little bit separate. There's been just a little bit of a gap between how do I, when I need to customize or represent it, there's been a slight difference between the two. And one of the simple refinements to method security is that you can perhaps obviously return a Boolean, like has authority returns a Boolean. So from your spell expression, you can return a Boolean, or you can return a rich object that implements authorization result, which allows you to like attach reasons and things like that, so that can move through your entire like access decision kind of logic that tells people, hey, you need this in order to be able to get the authority, obtain the authority that you need. But one refinement that we introduced in Spring Security 7 is that your spell expression can return an authorization manager itself. And it sounds like sort of sophisticated, but it's a simple outgrowth of what's needed, because what you're supplying in the DSL effectively is an authorization manager. You're saying here's the class that you will call in order and pass the authentication in whatever context you have in order to decide if that authentication has authority. And so now you can have the same authorization manager, whatever it is, and you can indicate what set of expressions inside of method security will return that same authorization manager. And that might be an example, but like a code example might make that a little simpler, but you can look for that in the documentation. And I think there's even a ticket for OAuth right now. There's a PR where this has already become simpler to allow people to put has scope inside of spell expression without having to customize other like smaller parts of Spring Security that are more in the weeds, and they can simply produce a class that returns a set of authorization managers, one of them that like has a has scope method instead. And so that's kind of long-winded and a little more complex than I was hoping for, but there are little small refinements like that have allowed method security and web security to now use the exact same set of classes. Whereas there was historically a small difference between the two, like a small stutter step between the two to get them to be unified.
One thing I was just thinking of, and then we'll kind of wrap this up. If in the past, if I were to like try to write a test against something like a username and password, I could do something like with mock user, right? Mm-hmm. How would I test against like multiple authorities like this? Is there a way to do that?
Yeah, good question. One of the really nice things about the design is that since it's a set of authorities, you can continue using with mock user as normal. because you can specify the set of authorities, right? You can say with mock user, and the authority that they have is factor password.
Nice.
And if your API is requiring, something else, then you can confirm that. Anyway, that will be the only authority that user will mock user will have, right?
Yeah.
In place. So there are further refinements likely to come with regard to testing as we move on. But yeah, the existing set of annotations and the existing semantics will persist since they also are simply granted authorities like the rest of them.
Cool. All right, DaShaun, any other questions?
Yeah, I've got two. Now we've got our new password for J-based password encoders. Which one should we be using by default? Which one do you use by default?
Good question. So the recommended, well, let's see. Let me think about it just for a second.
It's been bcrypt. That's been my default for a while.
What's that, did you say?
Bcrypt.
Yeah. So here's the way I think about it. So OWASP is a set of, it's an organization, but it is also a set of security recommendations. And so if you go to OWASP.org and go to password security, you can see the various recommendations. And so long as you are using bcrypt, Argon 2, or scrypt, those are the three recommended. Bcrypt is nice because it is well known, it's well understood, and you can increase your security level by increasing the number of rounds that the hash is performed by moving from 10 to 12 to 16, or whatever it might be appropriate, and it's well understood. Scrypt is cool because each one of these newer algorithms has another dimension by which it exhausts further resources, right? So for example, bcrypt exhausts computational resources, and other algorithms exhaust both computational and memory resources. And so in order to hash it, I need a bunch of RAM and I need a bunch of CPU. Or enough to make it hard to crack more than one password at once. And so all three are still healthy to use. And if you are wanting to exhaust both memory and CPU, then take a look at some of the newer ones. Most people are still just fine to keep using bcrypt though, and that's why it continues to be the default in Spring Security. So.
The answer, as always, DaShaun, is it depends.
It depends. All right. I have one more question, and this is from an event that Dan and I were at a couple of weeks ago. You mentioned that we can return the authorization result, I think it's called, where we can actually see the details of why we made a decision based on the security chain. Yeah. And one of the questions was, when we're doing observability, when we're tracing, right? We know our good friend Daniel says, like, hey, you want to understand Spring Security, you turn on tracing for Spring Security. But sometimes we want things to be auditable, trace. We want our logs going someplace. And one of the questions that came up is like, how do I filter or obfuscate or I want to cover up the username, password, or some other detail from something in Spring Security? Is there a way to do that? When we got asked that question, I was like, I'm pretty certain I've done this before.
Yeah.
Is there a way of masking details of this authorization result?
Good question. So there's a couple of directions we could go with the question, and I'd probably want to know more to be able to answer more definitively, but I'll give you two things to consider. One is when it comes to observability, what Spring Security does is it adds things into the the context, right? And it marks you wrap your authorization manager in an observable authorization manager. You wrap your authentication manager in an observable authentication manager, and it adds timing details and details about the authenticated principal and the authorization result. And there's no, at that level, there's no supported yet way in Spring Security, or there's no, I don't know, stated or there's no stated way to when you're writing your I don't know as much the observation API. I think it's called an observation handler. When you write your observation handler, there's no guidance, particularly from Spring Security, that says, hey, when you're emitting these things, here's how you turn this off. Okay. You can supply your own observation convention and your own authentication convention in Spring Security. And so from an observation standpoint, that's where I would guide people towards. But there's not like a button or something you can say, here are the things that you're going to not show. That said, Spring Security does by default always hide the credentials, and it doesn't consider, we don't consider username to be a credential. And so by default, we don't obfuscate the username. We do obfuscate or just not log or send out anything that's a credential. The other half to your question is when it comes to emitting your results to end users or to other places that aren't necessarily about infrastructure. And you can take a look at Spring Security support with, there's a annotation called handle authorization denied. And you can indicate how what you want to do with the thing that's about to be returned. And if that thing has stuff in it that you wouldn't want to show, then you can decorate it at that point, or just null it out, whatever it is that you need to do. You can participate before it's returned. And so it could be that the questions that you're getting asked, it could be more about that. But if it's about infrastructure, if it's about observability specifically, then the observability API is the way to go there. And Spring Security doesn't have anything particularly special for observation. It just implements the various interfaces, which you can also re-implement.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for that. That's all the questions I had.
All right.
Thanks so much for hanging out with us.
Yeah. Josh, if people want to find you on the internet and you want to be found, where can they find you?
Yeah, you can find me on Blue Sky. My username is JZHEAUX, and it's just a username that I got when I was 13, and it's stuck.
All right. Well, I'll get that in the show notes.
That's basically where you find me, or you can find me on GitHub and log an issue. You can find me on Stack Overflow. I love hanging out there, answering people's questions. Cool. Yeah, those are the main places.
All right.
Or Utah. Come.
Or Utah. Yeah.
Come hike with me. Yeah.
Go get some skiing in. See Josh. Or at a conference near you. Hopefully we'll see you soon at some conferences next year. So
yeah, for sure.
If you get a chance to see Josh at a conference, I highly recommend you do it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Don't miss out.
I appreciate that.
All right, Josh, thanks for taking some time out of your day and sharing your knowledge with us. We appreciate it, and we hopefully we can do this again soon. So thank you.
I'd love that. Talk to you guys later.
All right. Bye, everyone. See you next week.